Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Tonight, North America faces a crisis unlike any in recent memory, a moment that could redefine the relationship between two of the world's closest neighbors. British Columbia now threatens to choke off the only land route to Alaska, escalating tensions with the United States and sending shockwaves through both governments and communities that depend on this vital connection. What began as a heated exchange over tariffs has spiraled into a genuine economic standoff. Supply chains that stretch across the continent are suddenly at risk, and millions of lives hang in the balance as businesses and families brace for the fallout. The U.S. Canada relationship, once celebrated as a model of international cooperation, is now strained to the breaking point by protectionist policies, retaliatory threats, and a growing sense of mistrust on both sides of the border. The world is watching closely as this dispute threatens to unravel decades of stability and prosperity, with global markets and international leaders anxiously monitoring every development. At the heart of the conflict are British Columbia's highways, a vital artery for goods, fuel, and food to reach Alaska. What was once a symbol of cooperation is now a bargaining chip in a high-stakes geopolitical game. Canada's move to impose new tolls is a direct response to what it sees as U.S. bullying tactics, marking a dramatic shift from years of quiet diplomacy to a bold and public act of retaliation. Both sides are digging in their heels. President Trump has threatened even harsher measures if Canada proceeds, vowing to protect American interests at any cost, while Canadian leaders rally public support for their stand. The situation is volatile and unpredictable. One misstep, one miscalculation, could trigger a full-blown trade war with consequences that would ripple far beyond North America's borders. As of tonight, the northern border is no longer just a symbol of friendship and open exchange, but a front line in a battle for economic survival, national pride, and the future of cross-border cooperation. The continent stands on edge, its people anxious and uncertain, awaiting a diplomatic breakthrough that, for now, remains just out of reach. To grasp the stakes, consider the Alaska Highway. Built during World War II, it's been a lifeline for over 80 years. While most goods reach Alaska by sea, the land route is crucial for time-sensitive cargo, fresh produce, and vital equipment. It's also a gateway for tourism and personal travel, supporting communities along its path and connecting Alaskans to the rest of the U.S. Disrupting this corridor isn't just an economic inconvenience, it's a threat to the Alaskan way of life and a betrayal of decades of trust. By targeting this route, Canada is leveraging deep historical ties as a powerful bargaining chip. The legacy of cooperation is now at risk, as the corridor becomes a focal point in a bitter economic conflict. The crisis began when President Trump announced sweeping tariffs on Canadian goods, aiming to rebalance trade but igniting outrage. The broad, untargeted tariffs sent shockwaves through both economies, with Canadian industries bracing for impact. Trump's inflammatory rhetoric, hinting at military action and questioning Canada's sovereignty, transformed a trade dispute into a matter of national pride. A one-month delay in implementing tariffs only heightened tensions, leaving Canada uncertain and on edge. Canadian leaders, feeling bullied, united in defiance, and prepared a coordinated response. Instead of forcing concessions, Trump's gambit galvanized Canada, turning a simmering dispute into a diplomatic inferno. The tariff threats were the spark, the rhetoric was the fuel. Canada struck back with the Economic Stabilization Tariff Response Act, empowering British Columbia to impose tolls on U.S. vehicles heading to Alaska. This move was a direct response to the escalating trade tensions between the two neighboring countries. The act, temporary by design, serves as a deterrent, ready to be activated if U.S. tariffs proceed. It was a strategic measure, crafted to protect Canadian interests while sending a clear message to the U.S. administration. Deputy Premier Nikki Sharma declared, "We didn't ask for this trade war, but we will fight for BC's economy with every tool we have." Her words resonated across the province, rallying support from both political allies and the general public. Other provinces joined in. Ontario imposed surcharges on electricity exports, demonstrating a unified stance against the U.S. tariffs. This collective action showcased the strength and solidarity of the Canadian provinces. Yukon banned U.S. alcohol and restricted contracts, further tightening the economic screws. These measures were designed to hit the U.S. where it hurt, leveraging Canada's economic power, and BC halted procurement of American goods. This was a significant move, affecting numerous businesses and signaling a serious commitment to the cause. These were not symbolic gestures, but targeted sanctions designed to inflict real pain. The goal was to make the economic consequences of the trade war felt on both sides of the border. The message was clear: an attack on one part of Canada would be met with a united front. This unity was crucial in presenting a formidable opposition to the U.S. tariffs. The Economic Stabilization Act became the centerpiece of a nationwide response, signaling Canada's readiness for economic battle. It was a bold declaration of the country's willingness to defend its economic interests. The country's unity in retaliation sent a powerful warning to Washington. The message was unmistakable: Canada would not back down. Canada was no longer a passive partner, it was prepared to fight back. The Economic Stabilization Act was a testament to this newfound resolve. Officials on both sides have made their positions clear, exposing the deep rift between the allies. What began as a policy dispute has quickly escalated into a heated diplomatic standoff, with leaders from both Canada and Alaska voicing strong opinions and drawing firm lines in the sand. Yukon Premier Ranj Pillai summed up Canada's stance, stating, "This is not how you treat your friends. We must stand up for our country and our way of life." Pillai's words reflect a growing frustration among Canadian officials, who see the proposed measures as an affront to national dignity and a threat to the close relationship between the two regions. BC Premier David Eby and Deputy Nikki Sharma emphasized that tolls are a last resort, not a first strike. They stress that dialogue and negotiation should come first, and that any drastic action would only be considered if all other options fail. Their message is clear: cooperation is still possible, but patience is wearing thin. In Alaska, Senator Dan Sullivan threatened to bypass Canadian ports for cruise ships, directly targeting BC's vital tourism industry. He argued that Alaska has alternatives and will not hesitate to use them if Canadian policies threaten local livelihoods. "You don't want to mess with Alaska," he warned, vowing to hurt BC's economy if tolls are imposed. Sullivan's remarks have resonated with many Alaskans who feel their economic interests are at stake and are rallying behind their leader's tough stance. Governor Mike Dunleavy called for federal intervention, urging Washington to step in and protect Alaska's access and economic stability. Meanwhile, State Senator Robert Myers warned of dire consequences for Alaska's supply chains, highlighting the potential for shortages and increased costs if the dispute continues. The rhetoric on both sides is escalating, with real-world impacts looming for businesses and families. Local leaders and community members are growing increasingly anxious, as uncertainty threatens jobs, trade, and daily life across the border. The political battle is now personal, with livelihoods and regional stability hanging in the balance. As tensions rise, the decisions made in the coming weeks will shape the future of both regions, leaving many to wonder if compromise is still possible, or if the divide will only deepen. The threatened tolls would hit the North American trucking industry hardest, raising costs and disrupting supply chains to Alaska. The Alaska Trucking Association warns of higher prices for essentials, milk, bread, vegetables, directly impacting families and businesses. Trucking companies face a tough choice: absorb the costs or pass them on, fueling inflation in an already expensive state. The oil and gas sector, reliant on rapid overland delivery, could see costly shutdowns if parts are delayed. Uncertainty is toxic for commerce. Companies can't plan, and the threat of tolls creates chaos in logistics. British Columbia would need to build new toll infrastructure, but even the threat alone is enough to disrupt business. The entire supply chain is in limbo, waiting to see if political brinkmanship will become economic reality. Alaska's lifeline is now a bargaining chip in a high-stakes standoff. The conflict has spilled into the cruise industry, a vital economic engine for both Alaska and British Columbia. U.S. law requires foreign-flagged cruise ships to stop in Canada en route to Alaska, making BC ports indispensable. Senator Sullivan's threat to seek a waiver would let ships bypass Canada, devastating BC's tourism sector overnight. Nearly 2 million cruise passengers and hundreds of millions in revenue are at stake. Thousands of jobs and businesses in BC depend on these stops. Losing them would be catastrophic. For the U.S., the waiver is a powerful weapon, but it could face pushback from environmental groups in Washington state. The cruise ship standoff raises the stakes, turning a regional dispute into a battle over entire industries. The fate of BC's tourism now hangs in the balance, a pawn in a much larger game. For Alaskans, the dispute means higher prices and a sense of isolation, as their vital land link to the U.S. is threatened. Everyday costs, from groceries to building materials, are set to rise, straining household budgets. The uncertainty breeds anxiety, as families worry about being cut off from essential services and loved ones. On the Canadian side, BC's tourism workers face job losses if cruise ships bypass their ports. Small businesses, tour guides, and restaurant workers could see their livelihoods vanish overnight. The conflict erodes decades of trust and friendship, replacing cooperation with suspicion. Cross-border relationships, personal and professional, are at risk, as the dispute forces people to take sides. The human cost is real, and the damage to community ties may outlast the political fight. Experts warn that a full-blown trade war would be disastrous for both nations, with no real winners. Retaliation is politically necessary, but escalation risks permanent damage to the U.S. Canada alliance. Quiet diplomacy could offer a way out, if leaders are willing to compromise and save face. If neither side backs down, a prolonged stalemate could reshape North American trade, raising costs and chilling relations for years. The cruise ship industry, supply chains, and regional economies all hang in the balance. The world is watching, as even the closest allies can be torn apart by nationalism and political brinkmanship. The crisis is a stark reminder: peace and cooperation require constant effort and mutual respect. The hope is for diplomacy to prevail, rebuilding trust before the damage becomes irreversible. The future of North American prosperity depends on finding common ground before it's too late.